What's up, everybody? It's Bryant. I'm just a guy who did a thing, and the thing I did this time was create recurring tasks in Planner using Power Automate. Let me show you how I did it. All right, share my screen here. Here I am in Planner. You can get to Planner at tasks.office.com, or the ever popular way to hit office.com, land on your Office portal page. You may have to sign in and see all applications that you have available to you. All right. Planner is one of these. If you come down on this side, let's see, click all apps in the bottom corner. You definitely have Planner right here. If you don't see it there, you don't have access to it in your organization. So hit tasks.office.com or find Planner there. Here within Planner, you will see plans that you have available to you. You could also create new plans. For this one, I'm just going to use this test planner board that I've got. Close all these dialogues. All right. You see I've got no bucket here to do. We could add new buckets. Let's say that for our case, we have every week to reach out to our clients and send them a snapshot of a report that we're working on or some KPIs just to let them know how things are performing. So what we're going to do here is create a bucket for us. I like when I'm using Planner, at least personally, to create a backlog bucket. And then I create, I actually use let's move this into the backlog to get rid of that empty. Okay, and then I like to use a next 10 to let me know what 10 things I have coming up next. And then I have my current items. And then I use, let's call this done. All right, here's kind of my setup. You can do it however you'd like. So what I'm going to do here is let's create a recurring task within my current items, because as soon as this task comes in, I want to make sure that I address it right away. So we'll create it right there. Now, there's no way within Planner, let's say I add a task here to reach out to clients. Okay, I've created this task. I open it up. There's no way for me at this point to make it into a recurring task. There's just not a feature that exists within Planner. I could assign it to myself and give it a certain label, as well as set the priority and the due date of this. So let's say the due date is today. We could then add some checklist items like filter report. For each client. Then save copy, email to client. Now, I'm generally somebody who, if you're going to be emailing data or something like that, I'd rather just automate the email rather than automate a task to tell me to send the email. However, I know there are a lot of circumstances where there's a lot of nuance to that, and especially if we want to see it ourselves and we don't want just these automated spam emails to go out that may contain things that we don't intend. So yeah, I understand there may be a good use case for this. So this is the kind of task that I'd like to create. If I close this here, you see I've got these all set up the way I'd like to. The problem is I can't, again, create that as a recurring task. So we're going to leverage a tool called Power Automate. If you go back to your Office portal page, you should see it here with the little chevron. It's blue. You could also find it at flow.microsoft.com. So opening up Power Automate. And Power Automate is an online workflow tool. Connects all your Microsoft applications along with hundreds of others. I think they're approaching 500 connections that you can leverage. So very cool, very useful tool here. I love using Power Automate. Under My Flows, you can create a new one here. We would like to create a scheduled cloud flow. These are ones that just run on whatever schedule we give it. So here we'll do recurring task creation in Planner. So when you create a recurring flow, it will start immediately the time that you save it, unless you fill this out and say don't start until, and here's where, let's say we wanted it to be next Monday. We would not want this flow to start until this time, and we want it to then repeat every week. And we'll do it just on the Monday. Okay, and then once we create it, we can choose what time. So we'll just say start this flow at 10 a.m. And then we'll trigger it every Monday at 10 a.m. So here we go, we're dropped in. The first thing at the top of every flow is always going to be your trigger. This is the thing that kicks off the workflow. We click edit here. and show advanced options, you can see we haven't picked a time zone. So here I am in Pacific. Let's choose that. It put our start time in here, and then it's going to run on Mondays. So let's say that we want to run it at 10 a.m. Okay, and then at minutes, if you don't select minutes, I found that it usually runs it at the end of the hour, just because Power Automate's trying to prioritize other things around that. So if you don't have specific minutes that you need, leave that blank. It'll usually come in at the end, unless there's a lull, in which case it'll just shoot it in right away. Okay, sorry, I can't save that. I need to add an action next. So next step we want to do is let's look up Planner. Okay, I always find it a best practice to look up the category here and then click it, and then you can see exactly what the different actions are that we can take. Here you see you could create tasks, you could create buckets, delete tasks, get details about the plan, get details about the task, list all the buckets, update a task, etc. Okay, so first thing we're going to do is create a task. Right? I don't know what this preview one is. But I'm guessing it's going to contain more information for us. Let's click it and find out. All right, maybe. A little bit stuck. Okay, starting that action over. See if we can click. Okay, so create a task preview. It's going to ask for a group ID. A couple ways to get this. Hopefully you click here and it shows you the group you're looking for. I think we were in the project management site group. Okay, if you don't see the group you're looking for, you can always click enter custom value. And if you come up to your planner URL, you'll find that it says group ID equals and has a long string. And I think it may just be the numbers there or anything before the ampersand. Yeah, I think it's everything before the ampersand. So group ID equals, that would be the group ID. We do the same for plan ID. So if you come in here and it doesn't have your plan after you've selected the group, here it does for me. You can choose custom and then put in that plan ID there. All right, so this would be the title of the task. Here, we created that task that says reach. This is reach to clients. It was meant to say reach out to clients with update. Okay, the bucket that we would like to put it in, and now I'm not quite sure how to find a bucket ID manually here. That one's a bit tricky, I would suppose. So, but here we can see the bucket. I think if you fill these two out and pull in all your buckets, it totally should. Current items would be the one that we want to add it in. You could then fill out all the stuff that we saw there. You'll notice there's a couple things missing from here, however. We've got start date and due date. So let's just say the due date is going to be UTC now. So when we click in here, we now have this pane that's popped up, the dynamic content pane. And if you click expression at the top, you can now add in functions. So here we're going to just get the current date and time UTC now as the function, put it in there. You would probably want to add hours to it, which I think we can do with the add hours. Okay, so let's just say we're going to add 8 hours. So the timestamp we give it is UTC now, comma, and over here the hours to give it 8. All right. Then it asks for a format, but I don't think that is required. So here we go. We've given it 8 hours from when we create the task is when it's due. So basically end of day. Now we could we could assign it to somebody. Here it's just email addresses. So as I start typing, I'm wondering if it pulls it in. Nope. So I'll just leave that off. I've got some funky email address in here. We'll just leave it off. You could do a priority. Now we want to provide additional updates. Here we added tasks. We also, I think we chose priority, labels. I guess we could do labels within this one, and we've got priority, but we're missing some subtasks, right? So let's click new step, and then let's find planner again. And it turns out if you go from creating the task to updating the task, update task details is I think the one we're looking for. Okay, so update task details. Here's where you can add checklist items. So you got to add in the task ID. fortunately, it pulls it in here. If it doesn't, use the custom value and then get the task ID here. Let me show you how to do that. Enter the custom value, and then you've got all of this dynamic content here. So you should be able to find the ID of the task, which is just simply ID. In our case, it did pull it in here, so let's just grab that. Now we could add a description. We didn't add a description to our task earlier, but I'll show you where that kind of lands in there. So here is the description thing. Okay, and then we want to, if you will have references, right, you could add in a link, a URL. So let's say that it's a report that you want to reference over and over again. It probably makes sense for you to put the URL of there. Let's see if we could add in a reference to Google. See how that comes in. And we'll call it report. All right. Looks like that would all be for files. Okay, checklist ID number. The 3 items we put in here are, we're filter report for each client, save copy, and email to client. All right, so number 1 is all at 1. Filter report for client, and it comes in as unchecked. Number 2, number 2 was save copy. Also comes in as unchecked. Number 3, email to client. And this one also comes in as unchecked. All right, let's save this. Let's see if we can then test it and run it. Okay, so this should all be set up exactly how we need it to work for the future as well. Now what I'm going to do is come here and everything looks good. In the upper right corner of your flow, now that you've saved it, you can hit test. In this case, we're going to use manually. It's just going to trigger it for us automatically right now. It makes sure that everything's set up correctly and that I do indeed want to run it. And then I click run flow. I hit done, and it will actually pop me into the specific run of the flow. And you see these green check marks, that's all good news for us. So if I come back to the planner, let me refresh and see. Okay, here. Okay, so this is a good thing to keep in mind here. This this task here was then modified. So it looks like we created a task and then modified the other task. So in here, this update task details, this actually is the existing task that was there. We did actually want to enter the custom value and use the ID. So that's my mistake on that one. Save it and then run. We'll try it one more time. Okay, this should mean that every time the task is created, it will actually update that specific task that was just created because we were using that dynamic content. So now that I'm back here, oops. Let's go. Refresh. All right. Reached out to clients with update. Okay, this has now got this Google link to it. Let's open it up and see. Okay, we've got our checklist items. Now it didn't show on card. This is actually an option that you cannot turn on by Power Automate currently. But it did add the attachment, call it a report link, and send us to Google. So that's really cool. All right. And then I think that's it with the due date being today. It looks like it doesn't do a time. So rather than adding 8 hours, you could add 24 hours. You could add 1 day, and that would make it due tomorrow. It looks like at this point in time, 8 hours away from now is tomorrow. So that worked out in that case. So yeah, that's how you would set up a recurring task within Planner using Power Automate. Now this is going to run for me every Monday and create this task for me. So then I can come back in here, do all the subtasks, check it off. And that's the thing that we did, was connect, or create a recurring task within Planner by using Power Automate.